Just this one. Just that one. Perfect.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. So tonight I'm going to speak about this Brahma Vihara, this beautiful emotion of metta, loving friendliness. And I'm going to, since we're doing a series on similes, I'll start with a simile. And this is from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 20, number 5, a spear. And so the Buddha was living at Savatthi when he gave this talk. And he said, "Meditators, suppose there was a sharp-pointed spear, and a man came along and thought, with my hand or fist, I'll fold this sharp spear over, crumple it, and bend it back. What do you think, meditators? Is that man capable of doing so? No, sir. And why not? Because it's not easy to fold that sharp spear over, crumple it, and bend it back with a hand or fist. That man will eventually get weary and frustrated. In the same way, suppose a meditator has developed the heart's release by metta, has cultivated it, made it a vehicle and a basis, kept it up, consolidated it, and properly implemented it. Should any non-human think to overthrow their mind, they'll eventually get weary and frustrated. So you should train like this. We will develop the heart's release by metta. We'll cultivate it, make it our vehicle and our basis, keep it up, consolidate it, and properly implement it. That's how you should train." Now, the interesting thing in this sutta to me was this phrase, should any non-human think to overthrow the mind. So I tried to find a commentary on this sutta by a monastic to explain that line, but I couldn't find one, so I'll just share my thoughts on this. So in the Buddhist literature, there's a character called Mara. And Mara is both a real being, and Mara is also is symbolic. So as a real being, he's a deva, an angel, who has passed away from a human life, and he's been reborn into the 6th heavenly realm. In Buddhist cosmology, we have close to 30 heavenly realms, each one more refined than the one before. Not just one heavenly realm, many. So he's in the 6th heavenly realm. And you meet him often. If you read the suttas, you'll meet him often, and he's sort of like the counterpart to the Buddha. The Buddha's teachings are saying to us that if we just rely on the sensory world for our happiness, like rely on external circumstances, we're going to run into a lot of suffering because those circumstances change, they fall apart, they disappear. And so we're going to be over and over again disappointed. So that's why he's encouraging us to develop this happiness that can come from within, and then you're not at the mercy of external conditions being, a certain way in order to have happiness. But the message of Mara is exactly the opposite. He's saying, don't listen to the Buddha. Enjoy the sensory world, crave things, just do as much as you can. And so you'll see the two characters, the Buddha and Mara, often represented in suttas with these two different points of view. Symbolically, Mara stands for the hindrances. And our hindrances are desire, aversion, sloth and torpor, dullness and drowsiness. That's a more modern translation. Dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. And so often when you're reading things, they'll talk about when you become aware that you've got one of these hindrances up in your mind. One of the things they suggest us to do is say, "I see you, Mara," because once we see something, then we can do something about it. We can put in the right effort to change that. And so, when I read this phrase now, should any non-human think to overthrow their mind, they'll get weary and frustrated. So I'm thinking that this is symbolizing Mara in this symbolic form, as the hindrances. So if you really have a deep, deep metta practice, it just makes you very solid, and you're not going to be as assailed. You're not going to be shaken and pulled about, dragged this way and that by the various hindrances. If you'd like to read more about Mara, when we put this on the YouTube, I'll put the link. Or else, if you can remember, you just, if you go to arrowriver.ca, that's the website for Ajahn Punadamo. He's the abbot of Arrow River Forest Hermitage. It's about an hour out of Thunder Bay in Ontario. And he has written this totally brilliant long essay on Mara. And he's sort of riffed off of C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters. I don't know if you've ever read those. So C.S. Lewis was a Christian and this was writing about the devil. And so Ajahn Punadamo sort of used that format of the Screwtape Letters to write this letter to Mara. Anyway, brilliantly done, and it's on his website. I think if you go under extras, and then you'll see Letter to Mara. Highly recommend it. Several years ago, we read it here in the group. That was a long time ago. Okay, so what I want to do is go over the Metta Sutta line by line. So I'll just bring it up again. So the first quarter of the sutta here, this is the Buddha telling us the qualities we should have in place as a baseline in order to do the Metta Sutta. And so this is what I'll spend most of my time on. And this Metta Sutta is found in the Sutta Nipata. So the Buddha's teachings are collected into five volumes. The Digha Nikaya, which are the long suttas. The Majjhima Nikaya, which are sort of the middle length ones. The Samyutta Nikaya, where our simile came from tonight. Those are the shorter talks that are linked by themes, so to put into categories. The fourth book is the Anguttara Nikaya, and that's based on the numbers. Like if the Buddha said there's one thing you need to know, then that would be in the Book of Ones. Or there's the Four Noble Truths, that'd be in the Book of Fours. Or there's the Noble Eightfold Path, that'd be in the Book of Eights. So whenever he sort of puts a number to something, that'll show up in the Anguttara Nikaya. And then all the other teachings are collected into this fifth book called the Khuddaka Nikaya. And it has several different little books within it. One of the most famous is the Dhammapada. It's a book of, beautiful verses. So many people are familiar with that. It's got the Therigatha and Therigatha, which are the verses of the enlightened monks and nuns that lived at the time of the Buddha. And it's got this Sutta Nipata, that's in this last, and this is where the Metta Sutta is found. So I'm just going to go over this line by line. So the Buddha starts off with, "This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness." So he's saying virtue, like living a moral life, living a virtuous life. That's our baseline. And not only is it the baseline for the Metta Sutta, it's the baseline for all of the teachings of the Buddha. It's the baseline for the Noble Eightfold Path, the path to the end of suffering. By one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. If I do this, do I take it off the screen or is it still there? Is it still there? Okay, good. Help me stay on which line I'm on. And so the path of peace is the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha's basic teachings are encapsulated in the Four Noble Truths. The first truth being that there is suffering in this world, and we've all experienced it. The second noble truth is, what is the cause? And that's not being happy with the way things are. We're craving something that isn't there to come into our lives, or we're craving that something that is in our lives and we don't like to get rid of it. So it's both craving and aversion, just two sides of the same coin. The third noble truth is the promise by the Buddha that this suffering, this sort of mental suffering that we have, can cease. And the fourth truth is the how-to. How do we come to this cessation of suffering? And that's the Noble Eightfold Path. So being familiar with the steps, those 8 steps on the Noble Eightfold Path, it's a baseline for our metta meditation. Let them be able and upright. So being able, putting in the effort to become competent at whatever your duties are in life, your family duties or your duties in your job or career that you have. So doing your best to be competent in whatever your duties are. Upright, being honest. Straightforward and gentle in speech. Not beating around the bush, being devious, being sarcastic. Being straightforward and gentle. Humble and not conceited. So it's wonderful if we have skills and we're able to accomplish things. So you can be happy that you're able to do these things, but you don't want to go around beating your chest saying, "Look at me, look at what I did." It's more a feeling of gratitude we could have that, wow, how lucky we were that we got born with certain sort of inherent capabilities, or our life situation was fortunate enough that we were able to have the mentoring or the schooling or whatever that allowed us to develop these various skills that allowed us to accomplish things. So be happy with your accomplishments. Just don't go around being conceited about it. Be grateful, and don't look down on those who can't do that. Those poor souls may not have had the same circumstances in their life to allow them, to develop those skills. Contented and easily satisfied. If we're not feeling contented, it means, if we're wanting something, like we're feeling like we can't be happy unless we get a certain object or have a certain experience, then there's a feeling of lack because that isn't in our life at this moment. So there's a feeling of lack. And it's not a nice feeling. So being able to feel contented. I mean, certainly if you're wanting to manifest certain things in life. You put your ducks in a row or whatever, start saving your money or whatever to try and manifest that. But don't say, well, I can't be happy until that happens. Just put your ducks in a row, and then you can let go and just, okay, this is the moment that I have. Let's just be, happy in this moment. Don't condemn yourself to a miserable life until you get X. We were gifted with a set of cards from the Dhammasara Monastery. That's the nuns' monastery that's associated with Ajahn Brahm's monastery in Australia. And they sort of made a deck of little cards, like a card deck, with pithy sayings of Ajahn Brahm. And so each morning we take out a new pithy saying and have it for our thought for the day. And so he's got several of them that fit with this sentence here: contented and easily satisfied. So the first one is, when you want something more, you cannot enjoy what you already have. Suffering is asking from the world what it can never give you. And here's Aya's favorite. If you want a happy life, lower your expectations.
Lowered expectations.
Life is never perfect. Have the courage to rest your mind in the midst of imperfection. Don't get angry and upset when things go wrong. Expect that to happen. Where I am is where I want to be. This is good enough. Unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways. Now, this doesn't mean, ignore your duties in life. We all have various duties in our life. But it means not whining and complaining about having to do them. Like, don't take them on as a burden. It's just, okay, this needs to be done. Just be in the moment and do it. And Ajahn Brahm has two of the cards applied to this. The first one is, thinking about it is the hard part. Doing it is easy. And the other is, when you stop complaining, you stop suffering. Yeah. So don't add the second arrow to your duties by whining about them. Frugal in their ways. So we don't want to be over consumers. Peaceful and calm, wise and skillful. If we have these qualities, if we really feel grounded, then if somebody sort of attacks us in some way or whatever, you can remain calm. You don't have to rise up and get into a fight with them, because you know yourself, you know what's right and true for you. You feel sort of solid within yourself, and it's like, well, they're not able to see that or whatever, but you don't feel like you've got to rise to the bait and get into a big fight or an argument or something. Not proud and demanding in nature. So they're not proud. I'd say the same things about that as I said earlier about being humble and not conceited. If you're able to accomplish something, beautiful, be happy. But, just don't go around beating your chest. Feel the gratitude as well that you had the circumstances. In Buddhism we talk a lot about things being due to causes and conditions. So just feel the gratitude that you had the causes and conditions that allowed you to accomplish whatever it was. And then we don't want to be demanding. We don't want to be a burden on our friends, our family. But on the other hand, we can't run around. We don't want to run around and be 100 self-sufficient, like saying, I'm never going to have anybody help me, I can do it all myself. Because then you're not giving the opportunity for others to be generous. If you're just saying, okay, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to help all kinds of other people, but I'm not going to let anybody help me, well, that's not very generous. We need to be, part of our generosity is in allowing others who want to, support us in some way or help us or gift us with something, to allow that generosity. Just think of how it would feel to you if every time you tried to reach out and show some kindness to somebody, you got rebuffed. So don't, consider that. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. So, just being careful not to do anything that's going to cause harm to yourself or others. Okay, so that's the baseline. So this stanza here, this is the baseline upon which we can build that metta practice that we practiced in the guided meditation. So now what I'll do is I'll just read through the rest of the sutta. So this is now, we've got the baseline in, so now this is the beginning of the radiating of metta, loving friendliness. So wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great, the mighty, medium, short, or small. So metta isn't like an unconditional love. You're not sort of sending it to this group of people and leaving out that group of people. It's unconditional. The seen and the unseen. So in Buddhist cosmology, we have several different realms. So we've got our human realm that we're aware of, and we're also aware of the animal realm, but there's also beings in a hell realm, there's beings in a ghost realm, and then beings in these 30-odd heavenly realms. So sending metta to all beings, those we see and then those that most of us can't see in other realms. If you have psychic abilities, and sometimes you can touch in and see these other beings. Those living near and far away. So those we can see right in the room right now, and then those that are elsewhere in the world. Those born and to be born. So all the fetuses and wombs ready to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. It's interesting when I used to chant this to myself every day, and I had a very powerful experience doing a 10-day metta retreat with Bhante Gunaratana almost 30 years ago now. But this particular line, not despise anybody in any state, that just sort of came to my mind at a moment when I was despising somebody. And it was very helpful. And I was leaving work. I worked at the hospital, and on the road there in front of the hospital can be fairly busy, especially at the end of the day. So I was at the crosswalk, and cars are supposed to stop for people at the crosswalk, but they weren't. So I was standing there, sort of despising these drivers that were not stopping to let me cross the street and get home. But then this phrase, because I had been chanting this sutta, the phrase jumped into my mind, not to despise anybody in any state. And it really helped to change my heart around, because I thought, just as I want to get home to my husband, here are all these people that have worked all day and they're in their car and they're trying to get home to their families or whatever. And so I was able to, change my despising to some compassion for these beings wanting to get home from a day of work. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Yeah, we certainly, that is so heavy for our hearts if we're, feeling so angry. We're, wanting to have, wanting to have something bad to happen to somebody, or feeling revenge or something. It's just such a burden on our own hearts. So transforming that the best you can. And then the Buddha goes on to say, this is the quality of our metta. So even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. And then he's saying we should be having this feeling of loving friendliness towards all at all times. So whether we're standing or walking or seated or lying down, as long as we're free from drowsiness. He's not asking us to do this if we're super sleepy and falling asleep. But otherwise, to have this in our background, saying one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views. It's when we really get stuck on, holding an opinion about something that then if you run into somebody who's got a different opinion, you could, get into loggerheads with them and boom, there goes your metta. So, not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires. So these 3 lines are sort of referring to somebody who has become fully awakened, is not born again into this world. So once one is fully awakened, then the desires are all gone, and so there's no desire to pull us back into the round of samsara, into the round of rebirths. Okay. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. So I can open it now for comments.
Turn the recording on.
Oh, okay, just one
You
moment.
can go to gallery view.
Just one moment, please.